to Sunday. It is almost 8 o'clock. It's January the 5th. I hope everyone had a great holiday, and I wanted to share a very short but extraordinary experience with you that happened on Saturday. Now, it took place between about 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, and it took place after I had finished working on my story projects. I'd been working on those all night. And so I figured I'm going to try and get, a few hours of sleep. And I always know when this happens, when I kind of push myself and I'm up really late and I'm a little tired, that there's a chance that I can have an experience. But I didn't go in with expectations, no real expectations. But, I did also, by the way, I asked my more expanded self, or what many people call their higher selves, I call my more expanded self. I said, hey, it would be nice to, have an experience, but, with that sort of thing, I just kind of leave it up to my more expanded self and see what happens. Sometimes I'll have an experience, sometimes I won't. So I laid down, and I laid down on my right side. And I do believe, by the way, for those of you who are interested, that I was listening to storm sounds. I know a lot of people, they swear by binaural beats and these other things that they have in the background. But for me, simple storm sounds or nothing in the background usually works for an experience. So I'll have one of those two things, either storm sounds or, by the way, what really truly works, and I've said this before in videos, I know maybe, people might not be interested in doing it this way or having this in the background, but having nothing at all in the background works great. And then, so that really does work. So I had storm sounds on, and again, I was on my right side. For those of you who are interested, some people think or feel like they need to lie flat on their back, or I think I hear people talk about, or I read about people talking about the starfish position or something. I always tell people, lay down in a way that is the most comfortable for you. Don't worry about starfish or any of these other things. Just get comfortable. That's it. That's all. So, close my eyes, and probably within about, I'd say, it was probably about 15 minutes or so, I felt myself go into that in-between place. And when I say that in-between place, I mean the place between being asleep and awake. People have different names for it. But by the way, I like to just keep things simple on this channel. And when I started having experiences in the late 70s, we didn't have any of these names and these terms and stuff. So I apologize if, you're used to hearing terms like this. I just say it's the place between being asleep and awake. Sometimes I'll say it's the sweet spot, whatever. But I always know when I reach that place. And it's funny, I had someone ask a question to me about being in the in-between place and being able to move on out. I think it was either an astral projection question or a shifting question. And my thing is, when you reach that place, it's hard for me to describe that place to you, but you will know it. It's an extraordinary place to be in. It really is. I always think of it like you enter a dark room and a light comes on when a light isn't supposed to come on. And you know it. In your mind, you realize that this light is not supposed to come on at this time. But trust me, you will know when you reach that in-between place. And I know I reached the in-between place, and I went to the left. I started to roll off my bed to the left. Now, uh, this is usually connected to if I feel my entire body rolling and I don't feel separation, this is usually connected to shifting for me. But I am really trying to get away from these labels because sometimes I think I have hybrid experiences and I've had them before, and people have talked about, can you go from doing astral projection to doing shifting? And I always say this is something that I'm going to work on, that I have not achieved it. But interestingly enough, with some of these experiences, I'm starting to think that in a very natural way, I am going perhaps from astral projection to shifting, but I don't want to say this for sure. And always, I'll let you be the judge of what you think and how you feel about it. Um, and I'll just tell you the experience, and you can make that judgment. But so I go on off of my bed to the left, and normally when I go off my bed, it's like I fall off my bed back first, like onto my back, but I don't reach the floor, right? I stop right before I reach the floor and then I accelerate forward. That's how it usually goes for me. This time I went on my stomach, which is unusual. So I was on my stomach, flat on my stomach, and I went down off the bed, stomach first, and then I stopped right before I hit the floor, and then I accelerated forward, kind of, I guess you could say it was Superman style, I guess, in a way. And which was very interesting. I felt sort of powerful doing it that way because usually I usually feel as if I'm being guided. This time I felt like I was almost flying towards something in a way. So these experiences are always in darkness first. These feelings I have consistently, always in darkness, and then eventually the darkness lifts after I finish this acceleration. And this was no different. I accelerated for a while, and then the darkness lifted. Now, normally I'm walking around somewhere if I've shifted, right? If I've shifted, I'm walking around. I go from darkness to walking around in like a body. But this time I was flying, which tells me that this may have been connected to astral projection. So I'm flying. That's what the feeling is. That's what the sense is. That's how I perceived it. And below me, or not far away from me, was a miniature city. It was tiny. It was like a model city, but it was real. And it was a simple city. It wasn't like there were skyscrapers or anything. There were houses and I think other things that I saw. But yeah, it was small, it was tiny, it was miniature. And I was checking this out for a while and thinking to myself, thinking in my head, oh, this is so great. Thank you so much, more expanded self, because I love seeing this stuff. And the city was beautiful. And at some point, I transitioned from flying to walking, right? Now, in this moment, when I transitioned, I felt more like I had a body, like I was walking around. So that's where the transition may have taken place. Now, I didn't do anything in my mind. I didn't think anything in my mind like, I want to transition from astral projection to, a shift or to having a body. I didn't think any of that. It just came naturally to me, right? So I'm walking around. I'm seeing, I guess, this miniature city. And then I see these tiny dragons, like they're tiny figurines. I'm sure you've gone into stores before and you've seen these tiny glass figures. They're like, there could be dragons, but they could be animals and they could be other objects and other types of things, right? But they're quite beautiful. Many times, well, I don't know if they're handmade or whatever in the way that they're made, but they're quite extraordinary. Well, I saw dragons that were made of glass, that were tiny, like these figurines, and I also saw dragons that were made of wood. I remember this. And what was extraordinary, what was really, really extraordinary, was that some of these dragons that were made of glass were alive. They moved. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I just wish you guys could see that, because it's one thing to see it in a movie or to see TV and to see them do that, right? With a special effect. And you know it's a special effect. But when you see it and it's like really happening, I can't really communicate the feeling that you have. So I went over because I was like curious, and I touched one of the dragons that was made of glass, and I do believe that when I touched it, it became like flesh and bone. It looked like a tiny dragon, but it was flesh and bone, and I was able to stroke its head. And it seemed, I think, as I recall, that it seemed to like me stroking its head. Now, I was very, very careful. And anytime I've had experiences, because I've had other experiences where I've been to miniature places, miniature cities and stuff, I am very, very careful because, in that place I'm big. I'm guess like a giant. So I did this for a while. I hung out for a while, and then I returned. And I opened my eyes and I thought to myself, I have to share this experience with my community. It was one of the more extraordinary experiences I've had in the last few years. And just always thankful for the access, and thankful for my guides, and thankful to my more expanded self. It is so cool to be able to do this. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on this brief journey with me. And until next time, take care.